Hello, everybody, and welcome to live cardboard number 6, the Tariff Roundtable. There's been a fair bit of interest in this topic, so I expect to see some new names in the chat. Usually, I keep the interviews that I do in my podcast, and it's just me on this live stream, but tonight I'll have some great guests to talk tariffs with. I'll do my best to keep the conversation, keep myself up on the conversation as well as the chat. So feel free to post your comments and your questions. I'll do my best to respond. But I have one big ground rule before we get started tonight. We're not going to talk about politics. Everyone has their own opinion on whether the tariffs are a good idea or not, whether they support the president or not, or whether the tariffs will accomplish what the president wants them to do or not. We're not here to discuss any of that. Nobody's going to change anybody's mind about any of that over some live streaming online conversation. Instead, what we want to do is we just want to discuss the facts as they are now, with the large caveat that the facts definitely seem to change from day to day, or if not sometimes multiple times in a day. So I'm sure that's one of the things that's on everybody's mind. Anyway, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that general YouTube stuff. And if you'd like to support Pushing Cardboard, there's links in the video description on ways you can do that. I want to say a special thanks to my two most recent supporters, Wolf Dog and Christophe de Klerk. Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll also say we're not going to have any news or anything like that. No updates on the new games I've been buying or any of that. We're going to get straight to the guests. I don't want to leave them hanging. So, well, without further ado, I'll introduce you. From top right, we have Richard Handwith from Revolution Games. Below him is Roger Miller from Revolution Games. And below me is David Heath from Lock and Load Publishing. Hello, good to see you all tonight.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So we're here tonight to talk about tariffs and how they're going to impact our hobby and your businesses. But first, I want to take just a quick stab at explaining how tariffs work, and you guys can correct me on this, but I keep seeing things online or seeing things in the news about Americans receiving things and being confused about the fact that they have to pay the tariff. Seems to be a lot of people think that these tariffs are paid by the importer, the person doing the shipping, rather than the person doing the receiving. That's not the way it goes. So let me just take a shot at this. Is the way I think it works. You have a game that you're getting produced in China. Say you negotiate a price of $10 per unit and you order 10,000 copies. So you're going to owe the Chinese manufacturer $10,000. And that's the same with or without tariffs. You owe $10,000 for 1,000 games. You pay the shipping to get the 10,000 units from China to you in America. Again, it's the same with or without the tariffs. But upon reaching America, now that the tariffs are in place, you're going to be presented with a tariff bill based on the current rate. The one for China was 50%, then 104%, then 125%. I think I heard it as high as 145% today. So let's use that as a number. The U.S. government is going to present you with a bill then for $14,500 on top of what you've already paid on shipping and what you've paid your Chinese producer. But that $14,500 goes to Uncle Sam. So a game that was going to cost you $10 per unit plus shipping is now going to cost you $24.50 per unit plus shipping to produce. All the extra cost goes to the U.S. government. Your Chinese partner gets the same as always. Your shippers get the same as always. So if you used to charge retailers $20 per game and they sold it for $60, now you're paying $24.50. So you're going to have to charge your retailers, I don't know, $50. I don't know. They're going to want to sell it for $100, right? So, let's just. One other caveat is depending on what kind of a distribution system you have. Sometimes some game producers also work with distributors, so they need a cut in between what you pay for the. After you've paid the tariffs, there's a cut that's got to go to the distributor if you use that as well. So we can see how it all adds up. But have I got that pretty much right?
You're close. For Revolution Games, we don't use a distributor to get the games to us. So we just pay the shipping to us in addition. But yeah,
right.
Basically, you're right.
Yeah, pretty much the same for Lock and Load.
Yeah. It's so you basically you sell some of them online and some you sell direct to retail. I reached out to you guys first of all because both of you were the first two companies out of the gate that I saw post anything about a response to these tariffs. Roger, in yours, you laid out that with a 54% tariff, you could still produce games, though the manufacturer suggested retail price would have to rise by $10 or $15 per game, not a 54% raise, as the tariff only applies to the cost of the goods, not the shipping or what you pay designers or artists or storage or insurance, any of that. So, of course, that 54% is old news. Now we're looking at a tariff from China that's more than 100%. And you also mentioned that the biggest challenge is uncertainty, the constantly changing rules. So you said your plan going forward was to kind of slow production or maybe even stop production until you could kind of figure out where you were. I mean, I guess there's two questions I have for you right off the bat is, if this tariff is at 100% or 125%, do you have a viable business? And if so, well, what do you feel like the plan is going forward dealing with this?
We don't have a viable business at 145% importing from China. That won't work at 145%. I don't think we could increase the prices of games and sell games at that price. I'm not certain of that. There are other people who claim that the market is elastic enough that it can take that. And these are basically luxury goods and wargamers have that kind of money. But my gut instinct from the more expensive games we've seen, we did one game that we had to up the price in COVID when our production cost doubled. And it wasn't good. So we would not have a business plan like we have now producing in China. We did produce the first 30 of our games in the United States. We could look to reactivating that method with all of its various added expenses and quality issues and the fact that then I assemble thousands of games in my garage and all the rest of that. But that would be a whole thing. We've looked at some other countries and talked to European producers, but of course we're talking on and off tariffs with Europe also. So we've done some due diligence, but like I say, we don't really have a plan because I can't be confident that if I go to a plant in the Czech Republic, it's going to be a 10% tariff or a 40% tariff or whatever it is there.
Right. Our last game that we produced in the United States was 2022, to give you an idea.
Right. Well, David, I want to talk to you about crowdfunding in a moment because that's where a big part of your business chain is different from Revolution's. But before we even get to the crowdfunding part of it, what do you think about if the tariffs are above 100%? Do you feel the same way that there just doesn't seem to be a viable business model to produce games at that tariff?
Well, if you have to pay 100% tariff, yeah, I think that's going to really kill it. If you have to go from China to the United States, yes. But we produce in China now because of the honestly horrific options you have in the United States currently. And I've tried very hard to do that. I don't particularly fond of printing in China. Okay. There one printer, I won't mention names, and this is actual figures. These are not something I made up or estimating. Blood and Fury, which is the last game we did, I tried to print that initially in the US. They wanted $98 a game. That's not storage, that's not shipping, I'm not exaggerating. The same game, and this is I'm going off my memory here, was the $98 exact because that just like burned into my little brain here. But the actual cost to do it in China was, I think it was $20 or maybe it was $25, something like that. Okay. Now it's not costing the shipping. But no one has to be a math science here to realize that there's not $80 of shipping charges per game to go from China by freight to the United States. But with that said, if you ship the games, if you produce the games in China and warehouse them in China, which is what I was doing, you can ship the games from China to the UK. You're only paying, I think it's 9 or 7%. I don't really remember exactly, for them to get the games for you. Because then I'm not shipping them to the US to go to the UK, which is what I did this last time, and we'll never do that again. And then you go from China directly to the UK. And then you go from China directly to the EU. And then you're only paying 9%. So it doesn't affect as badly the UK orders and the EU orders. It's really the Canadian orders, to be honest with you. China, you guys in Canada have a much higher rate. And the Canadian distributors I talk to, they don't want the games from China. They want us to take the games first, and this is before the tariffs, and then, basically truck it to Canada.
Right.
So you got to kind of have to play with it, depending upon where the games are going.
Right.
For my
this is Christoph gets right to the nub of it. You've got you do Kickstarter for new releases. I think I don't know, Kickstarter, GameFound, whatever it is, but that's got to be like almost impossible to deal with now. If you are kickstarting and you're setting a price, collecting the money at that price, but fulfilling it in 6 months, you have no idea what the changes in the tariffs are going to be over that. We don't know what the changes are going to be in a week, let alone 6 months.
Well, the tariffs are part of the problem. The other part of the problem is in the last batch of games, I'm going to say year of, we had a game that we crowdfunded, 3 of them 2 years ago. The last year of it was really all printing issues. And as Americans, you don't have a lot of recourse. I mean, we're game companies. We're not Apple. And we can't sue, I don't care how big or small the print company is. And most, if not all, print companies in China are subsidized by the Chinese government. They're not, just 2 guys like we are going and making a print company. Okay. So the problem is you have no recourse. I think you have a problem with that. I had to actually ship the games to another printer to get them done. And then they had problems, but they didn't have anything horrible. It's just life problems, things taking longer. The second problem you have with the Kickstarter is, my opinion, I don't know how many people have been paying attention, GameFound, their solution, from what I read, is they're going to let the companies say, okay, listen, the game's $100 as of this second, but it can change 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 weeks down the road, whatever it might be. So you're telling me a customer is going to buy a game for $100, okay, on average, and then maybe it's going to be $150 by the time they're done. Who is going to kickstart a game not knowing what the end price is? I mean, I get hate email from people now. I didn't agree to pay for shipping afterwards because they don't read the instructions or understand what crowdfunding is. So take those people aside. How in God's green earth you're going to tell a customer, crowdfund the game, I hope it gets there, and I hope it's close to the price. Now, I will say this honestly, if they keep this up going, I think crowdfunding is on a permanent hold. Because
Right.
I don't see how anyone could fund that. And if it's not on a permanent hold, the idea that people are going to actually let you just decide what the price is the day after. I mean, I paid all the extra shipping costs. I paid all the extra money that I had to because I was late. That's not the customer's fault. But it's unrealistic that I can afford to do that at 150, whatever we're up to now.
Well, there's lots of companies that have that got hit with this like right out of the blue in a way, and that they have things where the pledge has been paid for, and they're still waiting for fulfillment. So the tariffs have kind of hit them out of the blue. And I read some producers have posted and said. We're going to eat this. We're going to honor the price we said, and it's going to be terrible for us, but that's what we're going to do. But I've also heard from a couple of folks on my Discord that have backed some Kickstarters where they've got emails from the producers saying, these tariffs are terrible. We want to hit you up for an extra X amount of dollars. Are you cool with that? I don't know if they have any right to do that or not, or if it's just going to be a failed Kickstarter. But I totally agree with you, David. I don't see how kickstarting crowdfunding in general can operate in this kind of an environment.
Yeah,
The only way I see it working is if you split your productions. Basically, rest of the world, you print it somewhere. In the United States, you print in the United States. But the problem with that, I may not have a problem with that, but the problem is the uncertainty. If you had some certainty over the next year of a flat tariff rate, you can make decisions on that. But if you go in a month at 0, this month it's 145, that makes it really challenging to be able to plan anything. And I think that's the crux of the issue that we have.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, you, Revolution, you guys are you're in an interesting spot right now because you have a game that's printed but hasn't shipped home yet. Is that, if I got that right?
Yeah, we're going to get the final proofs on Monday. So that basically means it's ready to go. So we've got to make a decision on what to do with that print run. So Gettysburg the first day, it's ready to go. We have to make a decision. And frankly, I'll be honest with you right now, we're not going to ship it at 145%. We'll leave it in China for now and play a bit of a waiting game to see if it changes. I mean, that's, to me, the practical thing for us to do.
Yeah. It feels like this thing of, I'm sorry, these comments are kind of clipping your guys' face there. That's the way it goes. It feels almost like playing the stock market or something, trying to decide the right day to ship. So like with the way things are so in flux, it's
well, let's just talk about the shipment date. So I'm kind of an amateur tariff expert because my sister works for Customs. She is the head tariff person of the United States for board games. So a huge, the national import specialist who writes the rulings on them. So the problem is in the past, before this administration, if you change tariffs and your shipment was on the water, they honored the previous rate. It was not an immediate thing. So the day you shipped it you knew certainty. That is not the current situation. Now, if we gamble and put it on the boat, we could come up with a situation where it's 20% when we ship it. 3 weeks later, a month later, when it hits the West Coast of the United States, it's 145%. If we decide we can't make any money, then you refuse to pay the tariff, you abandon the freight, the U.S. government seizes the freight, they decide whether they can resell it. They normally decide not to, they store it, and then they destroy it. That's the process that this will go. And by the way, they charge you for storing it and destroying it. So
of course,
you don't want to be in the situation where you put something in shipment and then get hit with it on the water. So we need a stable period where we could guarantee at least a month something isn't going to change.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was interesting to hear about was it your sister, your sister-in-law? I came across these guys on, I think it was on BGG, and they were trying to figure out if there's a way to get games classified as something else so that they could get around the tariffs. They were like, well, if they're shipping the boxes, they're game boxes, but they're not games. It's like, dude, they're boxes for games. They're going to get classified as games.
I tried to correct that online. You don't know how many places, but yes, board game parts are the very same classification code as board games. And no other things I saw, just ship the parts and assemble it in Canada. No, assembly does not change the country of origin either. It's based on the value. The country of origin is based on the value that each country puts into the product, and further, if there has been a substantial transformation in the second country. So substantial transformation means like taking raw plastic from China, goes to Vietnam, and the raw plastic is then converted into a product in Vietnam. That's a substantial transformation. It still means that the value of what the Vietnamese do to it has to be more than the value that they paid the Chinese for it. So you need to do those two things. So no, all these workarounds are just not going to fly.
And who makes the determination, Roger, whether you agree or not?
My sister will be the person.
The U.S. government.
No, my sister will be the person who, if somebody tries to slip board game parts in and misclassify it, and if it was ever my product, she immediately has to throw herself off and pass it off to one of her other specialists. So, yes, she's too good. It's not going to fly.
Stuka Joe has an interesting question. He wonders if you could combine a P500 crowdfunding model with print-on-demand production process. I don't know if that's possible.
You probably
So print on demand's more expensive.
Yeah.
You probably have to do it in the United States using one of the providers out there that do that stuff.
Right. So but
it's going to be more per product. I mean, you get the economies of scale when you're printing 1,000/2,000 versus ones and twos or 100.
And here's the funny thing: the printer, like we did print on demand for a while, and we had our own printer, but it was more of a Xerox printer. So it's not a copy machine, but it's not a Heidelberg or printer. And all the toner and all the parts to fix that come from China. And when we had COVID, the computer that uses for the printer broke. We didn't get a part for 2 months. And then after that, we could print again. We missed the whole Christmas season that year. And then on top of that, the toner was unobtainable because of COVID. So it's not just the production, but it's also the parts to print it yourself.
Right. Well, and we'll get to this in a bit about the possibility of U.S. printing. I did hear. I did hear from some other publishers, producers, and I want to talk a bit about some of the other business models out there, and just get your guys' reaction to them. I talked to Amabel Holland from Hollandspiel, and of course they use Blue Panther, so they get everything made in America, except I think just the only thing she gets that's tariffed is the wood bits come from China or somewhere. So she says she said that her she's not worried about her price or her costs going up so much. What she's worried about is with all this uncertainty, throwing the economy into a recession, and then people not so the games are one of the first things you cut back on, right? Is if you're worried about the cost of living and whatnot. But also, Blue Panther's here tonight. He posted similarly that he's his business is all sourced from the States except for the cubes and maybe some stuff that goes on the canvas mat boards. He didn't talk about the possibility of a recession, but he said, so are tariffs good or bad? I would say if a U.S. publisher imports their games, tariffs are at best a small negative impact on prices. I got to think that he posted that before the rate jumped from 52% to 104% to 145%. But he can chime in here if that's the case.
I don't think the tariffs are going. Listen, you're basically almost poisoning the Chinese economy doing this to some degree, okay? Because their whole economy is exporting for the most part, okay? So I don't think it's going to be a super long last. I don't think it will cause a recession either. I think it may make people like me, and I'm getting hit by it, so I'm on the, let's say, the bad end of the stick to some degree, as well as these guys may be. I just think it's something that you have to let. It's better than people shooting at each other. So, from my perspective, let them argue it out. Let them decide what they're going to do and see where it goes. And if that means we have to wait a few months to publish something, to ship something, it's really not that big of a deal. It takes us probably longer to get all the crap together than it does to ship it. But I do agree with what they're saying, though, is that if it's the second it hits, they decide to change the tariff, it could be on the boat already. And that's not a 30-minute trip, And, just to give you an idea how fragile the system is, and I'll take the blame for not being more aware. I knew there was East Coast strike coming around Christmas. It was a possibility. It wasn't a done deal. Okay. What wasn't discussed or talked about in the news or amongst anybody else I'm aware of is a lot of those East Coast people shipped their stuff around through the Panama Canal and went to the West Coast. My product sat, I think it was almost 2 months before they picked it up, because I'm not Costco. I'm not taking a whole ship of containers. I'm lucky if I'm 2 containers or 3 containers at the most. So it sat there until they had room for me, to get on the boat. So even when it's done and picked up from the printer, it doesn't even when it's going to get picked up. And that strike was only 3 days, if everyone remembers, 3 or maybe 4 days. It caused a 2-month backlog of availability of shipping.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like this kind of supply chain foul-ups that we had in COVID, really. This is staggering to see. Somebody heard that Worthington has 11 tariffs on the water at the moment. That is that's stuff that probably shipped before, that was put on board before the tariffs came in, and these numbers changed. Well, they're en route. That's got to.
If you're paying attention, I mean, I wasn't surprised about the tariffs or anything else. I mean, we knew they were coming. So, I mean, honestly, we hustled the gamers out the door. I thought it would be about a month earlier, in all fairness. And I got everything over in one shot. Even old stuff in inventory I brought over from China. So I have no games in China right now at all, because I knew they were coming.
But I think everybody knew they were coming, but I don't think everybody expected the tariffs from China to be over 100%.
Well, I didn't expect it this high, but when we were at a convention back in November, and we were there with other publishers, European and US, and talking about it. And Richard and I talked about it then, and normally we'd print multiple games at one time. We'd print, I mean, the 2 Januaries ago, we printed 8,000 at one time of a couple of titles. That would normally be, we'd do economies of scale, fill a container, move them over. But we have other games, and we deliberately chose to only send to Gettysburg by itself, and we knew it was a risk. But we were only going to risk 1 game, so we wouldn't end up like Worthington now with 11 games on the water. And we talked about it. We've got storage right now in China. If this goes on prolonged, we think, like David, that it's most likely that it won't be prolonged. But if both sides dig in and we're looking at years, we'll tell them to have a nice bonfire, burn the game, take the loss, and never bring it here. We'll reprint it in the United States. We'll reprint it in Europe. We'll do something else. But it's just, we can't make up, the 20,000 or whatever. I haven't even figured the latest 145% tariff it is. Like, I stopped at 104%, stopped doing the math. Just made me angry. So at that point, it literally is better to take the tax write-off, destroy the product, and move on.
And if it was 145%, and you could guarantee me it would be 145% for the next 3 to 4 years, you can plan. I can make a decision. I can get quotes in the United States for product, and it may or may not be more or less than us printing it in China, taking the tariff and bringing it here. That's the analysis at least we can make. We can't even make that analysis right now because of the instability.
Right, but you got to look at it this way too. You've got 75 countries supposedly on the way or here now to negotiate to end this, and that's only going to leave China, on the short end. And I can't see how their economy could withstand that. And I actually found printers, and again, let's not talk about quality control, anything else, because you're already at a disadvantage when you print in China because you get what you get, in that regard. But there's people in Belize and Costa Rica that actually contacted me of printing the stuff. So there's other ways around it. Then you don't need a boat. Then you need a truck. And then you got to get through, I guess, the cartels. And who knows what else is down there going on. Okay, now luckily the cartels probably doesn't care too much about our board games. But, you've got that. I mean, the real thing is we need a place to manufacture within our own country that can actually handle not 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 games. And that's the problem. You have nobody. I mean, the people we tried to use in Denver, okay, again, not naming names, the word pathetic does not even begin to describe the crappy quality that they gave us. Okay.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I've heard that from a lot of either posted or speaking with publishers this week that say, look, since we basically offshored printing has been a thing we offshored to China ages ago, they're now way ahead of America in terms of technology and innovation within that industry. So they say even if we print them at home, the quality just isn't as good as the quality we get out of China. So it's not just and then the other thing is the difference in the cost of labor and all that sort of thing. But there's definitely companies that are saying we want to print in America, but we can't find anybody who does it as well. Even like not.
It is a quality control issue. Like I said, as I told you, Blackwell Hurd and myself, we had talked about setting up a high-tech print studio here. Now, chuckle aside, everybody, the printers all come from China. So there's a little issue there, okay? But taking that aside, I don't really believe it's as much of a labor, because the higher tech equipment you get, really, the less amount of people you need, okay? And yes, maybe you can't print it as cheap as China, but it's nowhere near $98 a game to $20 a game. I mean, that is the difference of talking to a U.S. printer, a real one with real equipment, and a Chinese printer. Well, actually, I would say go further, multiple Chinese printers. So, that's an $80 difference. You really believe $80 is being caused by pure labor? Now, again, if you need 10 people on your press because you have to use older equipment and you have to use the special ink, the way you pour in the inks. I mean, I used to work in a print factory in high school. Okay. Yes, I can see requiring a skill set, but a modern day printer, and it's not as simple as I'm making it sound, but you press a couple of buttons, you upload the file, and it prints it out. I mean, there's a card machine that will print. You upload the stuff, it prints all the cards, it wraps all the cards up in the cellophane in the box. When you get at the other end, you've got a complete deck of cards. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I know you can find high school students that can press a button. They got phones. They can press a button. So I think it's a matter that we've given up, in a way, part of our freedom by letting no production of these stuff be done over there. And then the shipping industry kind of raked us over the coals here when the COVID started. Okay. And now you've got these tariffs doing it from a different angle, but it's all the same stuff.
We've had a little better luck than David with American production. Obviously, there's a fair number of wargame companies that do produce in the United States, or have until very recently. So our printer in Philly, which does counters for 12 wargame companies, the one that we used, and they're products that you'd recognize from many of the big companies.
Yeah, they are good. I agree with you. It's the same guy. Yeah, he's a good guy.
And the The price that we normally pay is about triple what we pay in China. If I look at individual component by component, I pay about triple in the United States. There are also other, but the problem is we did it by piecing out the parts. The counters came from Philadelphia. The boxes came from Kansas City. The maps were printed by an international printer that had a plant in Sacramento. We gather all the parts from all over the place, assemble them ourselves. And if you carefully choose an individual here who still knows how to make a good box in America, and an individual person here who still has a good litho press who can do a good map, you can get pretty good quality. But there's no such thing as a game manufacturing plant, with the exception of one, Ludofact, the German company, has a plant in Indiana. And they will turn out a Chinese style turnkey product. But of course, they are more expensive. We've used them for 2 games. They are more expensive. They're not used to doing war games. They're used to doing terraforming Mars and that kind of stuff. So they struggled a little bit with us having to educate them about war games. And of course, with that one plant now, everybody and their brother is trying to go to them. And every Euro game, every war gamer, everybody is trying to go to that one plant. There's a second plant. Delano has a plant in Chicago. They make board games and board game ports and cards too. Several of my co-publishers tried to use them years ago. They struggled with counters, and they said, we never want to do this again. And
yeah, I'm one of those.
So we had the same issue, Roger, with counters with Ludofact.
Yeah, well, like I say, I was being polite when I said they struggled, and we had to try to get them educated through the war game process. But the fact of the matter is, Hasbro has factories, other people have factories. And I've talked to a ton of people. As far as I know, those are the only 2 independent produce a whole game factory in the United States. There are 2. And that doesn't even account for 5% of the production you would need to bring all the Kickstarters and everything else back to the United States. It's not
going to be a turnaround. And you also got the problem is, what about the ones with miniatures? And take something like Return to Dark Tower. I mean, it's not just that's not happening tomorrow or even the day after.
I'll answer Jason's question. Yes, Legion. Randy's a good friend of mine. He prints in the United States. MMP prints in the United States. Obviously, Clash, ATO. There's a whole bunch of people who print in the United States, and there's others like us and Decision, which printed in the United States till very recently. Randy even managed to get wooden cubes made in the United States.
Randy wrote me this week. I spoke with him, and he did say yes. All their production is the United States, except still those damn cubes. And he said, he was feeling pretty good, except it just so happens that right now the game that he's got in production has wooden cubes, and so he's getting those made in China. He's just got, generally, this is not a problem for him. It just he's got really bad luck on his timing.
Yeah, I can pull some out of the games I have and give them to him if he wants.
His first game that's all in China is right there, like ours, in the middle of this. So yes, but there is U.S. production, like I say, but and David really stressed the age of the equipment. This stuff isn't going to get replaced. My printers have been real clear. It breaks, they close the door, they turn off the lights, they walk away. These things are the printer I use for maps used to print the yellow pages. So this was their bread and butter. When that old press goes, they're not going to spend millions of dollars to buy a new press, like David said, from China, and hope that they can recoup that cost over years while competing with China at a lower price. The same thing for the die cutters.
Right. For our segment of the board game industry, that's got to be the die cutting of counters is just like something that's almost unique to wargaming. And that's got to be a kind of a challenge for a lot of printers, right? Because God, having spent 40 years playing these games or more, everybody can remember games where they didn't get the die cutting right.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's also too because equipment is so old. To give you an example, the actual thickness of the counters, like let's pick on the old Avalon Hill games, that's what they're still using. And you want to go to China because you want bigger counters and rounder counters, and the actual pressure to stamp that type of thickness onto a chipboard. Okay, and if you're rounding counters like I'm doing, you even need more pressure because you need more pressure because you don't have the edges with the nubs to play with. And so it limits that also.
Yeah, the press we get our counters when we were making in the United States has 30,000 pounds pressure. And if you see the pictures of it, it's this big press. And to get enough pressure on the counter, they use these braces to put the little counter sheet in the middle of this enormous press and put the whole pressure of the die to slam down on it for the problem David's talking about. And thickness of our counters, very few die cutters. I went to die cutter after die cutter in my own city of Sacramento, showing them the chipboard I wanted used, and they kept saying, we can't do that. We can cut McDonald's French fry boxes. We can cut wine labels. We can't do a counter sheet there. And so you instantly find out, wait a moment, there are very few people who can actually even have a piece of equipment. And the one that we were using in the United States was 50 years old. And so you've got a 50-year-old press, one of the few that can still do this kind of work. It's very limiting in the United States.
Now, the one thing I don't know as far as printing equipment, I don't know what the Europeans manufacture or don't.
Well, the guy in Poland, I forget his name right now, but there's a Polish printing press. He's not too bad. But, you know, it's the quality. The problem is the process of your production, in my opinion, will double. Not because they're slow or bad, because it's going to take you that much longer, us as the publisher, to get their samples to look at it and go, no. Or, well, that's good, but that's not bad. Can you make it thicker? With going back to the counters, you know, in America, they charge you for the die. Okay. And it's not cheap. In China, I don't get charged for the die. I can change that die every day, everywhere, which way I can. As long as it fits, I'm good. You know, so there's another cost that you increase just by printing here. And that's because you're using older equipment, of course.
Yeah, but the idea of upgrading, I hadn't thought about that, about these companies that have been operating so long and they haven't kept up with current technology. And so the price of upgrading at this point is like starting a new business from scratch almost.
It's a learning curve too, because there's a lot of technology. I mean, the back and forth I've done with the printer companies in China, it's not so much, it's not outrageously expensive. It's not cheap, but it's outrageously expensive. Is if you're an older print company, okay, I love technology, so I'm always goofing around with it. It won't be as complicated for me. But if you got older gentlemen or younger gentlemen who just don't like technology, that's not going to go well. You know, but the technology is it's kind of like the iPhone. If you take the iPhone as an example, I mean, if you want it just to use a flip phone to make a phone call, that is the simplest way. But if you want all the other features and contact that sync with your computers and all this other stuff that you have now take as second nature, there's nobody here I know of that has that equipment.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was sort of alluding to when I was talking about the Chinese are kind of leading in terms of innovation in the sector in terms of making these new machines and whatnot. But let's talk about that for a second. Then, David, you talked earlier. You just hinted at it, but you'd emailed me about it too. That you're looking at the possibility of what does it take to become a printer of board games in America? Is it possible? You're looking at that, right? To see if
I've been looking at it for probably the last 10 years and the last 5 years seriously. You know, I just turned 60. I don't know if I want to be bothered. That's really my whole thing. Okay, Blackwell, who's substantially younger than me, probably about 20 years, he's excited about the idea. And I was too, but after COVID and the printer and the toner issues and not being able to get parts, I'm really worried about that. Now, I will say that the research Blackwell's done, I have done, mostly Blackwell, there are ways around it. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to buy 2 printers. So when one breaks, I don't care. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what I felt about the copier printer. I want 2 computers. I mean, a place where we know a place that's warehouse and stuff for somebody, they haven't shipped games for 3 days because the printing label that makes all the labels that integrates with their other software, it's been down. And when you hear this, you hear why. The serial port is bad. Who uses a serial port anymore?
Totally, yeah, exactly.
You know? And we had to have a debate, which was older, serial ports or parallel ports?
Or parallel ports, yeah.
Nobody uses either one, but that's what is holding up a place that's trying to ship product. It's just insane. But that's what's going on. So if you get 2, I'm going to say 2 printers, and you get 2, stuff like that. The technology, like I said, is really there. Okay, now it's again. I'm sure you need a lot of space, you need a lot of power, all that stuff. But you know what? That's going to happen no matter what you do if you're printing. If you're printing, real full line production. And I'm sure, like one of the problems we discussed was they only ship the product to the port. Now you got to get someone to ship the product from the port to put it on the truck. Then they bring it to wherever you're going to put it. Then they got to get it off the truck. Who puts it in the warehouse? Well, that's someone different. Now, what I see there when I hear that is not money. Oh, he broke it. No, he broke it. Oh, that guy broke it. And it's broken. I don't want any of that. I want someone who I buy it, you get it inside, hooked up, and you show me that it's working, then then it's done. And that is very hard to do. Because everyone's white gloving it,
Yeah, right. Well, what you said about you buy two printers, 2 machines even, but you still got to get your toner, your parts, or whatever from China. While you were speaking, Blue Panther chimed in and said they're in exactly the same boat. They print everything here, but a bunch of their supplies, toner or whatever, comes from China as well. So it feels like it's a tricky proposition to completely cut yourself off from China if you want to do everything at home.
Yeah, you have to have double the triple the space you want. And I mean by that is you're gonna have to store paper, you're gonna have to store toner, you're gonna have to store parts. And it's all doable, but it's what I call a limited doable. You might get 6 months worth of extra stuff you have, but then you're gonna have to buy it again later. But better to do that than every month having to get parts and hope that it's available. And that's what we're running through now. I mean, Blue Panther, Steve, I think the world of Steve, man. I print with him whenever I can, however I can, because his stuff is great and he gets the stuff done and he stands behind his work. And you know what? That's the other problem. That's, like I said, the guys that we used, it became a court battle because he wanted to be paid, even though he gave me 3 out of 4 counter sheets that actually were good.
Ditto, ditto, ditto.
This comment here, this is a big one. Sorry, I've really obliterated you, but I'm putting it up because I heard back from, I think his name's Uwe, from Sound of Drums, fairly newer publisher in Europe, and he talked to me today about he says he's not going to raise prices. He's looking at ways of reducing costs, and his big thing being, maybe this is particular to Europe, but I would think I don't know if there's any efficiencies that are possible for you guys. He says what he's trying to do with some of the other European publishers is that all print at the same time in China, and then get everything, and then share the container, like share the shipping costs, right? So that they can get share a 40-foot instead of each buying a 20-foot, because a 40-foot is only 25% more expensive than the 40-foot is only 25% more expensive than the 40-foot or the 20-foot. It's not double the price. So he's
Yeah,
looking at things like
A
that. So I don't
container
know.
is like $5,000.
Right.
Oh, so it's not a big cost anyway compared
It's
to
not a huge cost.
right. Well, it's an interesting idea though.
No, it is, and it's smart. I mean, we've
co-oping
talked
on
about
pricing.
doing it, but I mean, the
The timing
efficiencies you
was
gain out of it are limited.
I mean, I did that with Uwe from Academy Games a while back. Did it save money? I guess it did. I mean, probably, knowing me, probably I wouldn't have done it. But you know, if you get, I mean, I'm actually Uwe from Son of Jumps. I'm going to hopefully be talking to him about the idea of that. But I think it's going to be a really hard thing because you're going to have to get everybody together, and you're going to have to get everyone to go at the same time. And you know, my goal is I used to do a game, 2 games. Now I'm going to do 4 to 6 games. I may print once a year, ship it all over at once, and just let it sit there until I'm ready. You know, and then everybody else has to be ready, or I have to be ready when everyone else is ready to get onto that container and to get all that stuff done. And then you're guessing how many games you need. Because, you know, some games sell better than other games.
Yeah, just don't take up our half of the container.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, when we were small, we shared production with other companies. I even did counters together. You know, we'd run counter sheets 8 sheets at a time, and only 2 of them would be Revolution games. But all the things David just said create the problem. So then all the companies on that shared run of counters have to be making the same exact number of games, or else one of us is throwing counters away, you know, whatever it is. You've got to then split them and transport them. You can save little bits of money by working with your co-game companies in some things, but it's not very much. I did an estimate that we could save $1,500 on one of our new things, and that was a couple tariffs ago, like at 104%. I was spending $15,000 more in tariffs, and every creative thing I could come up with was saving me $1,500. Oh, what was the point?
Yeah, right. That's depressing, but true, right? Yeah, I think. Hey, Mo, good to see you tonight. I think what he's talking about here is really true. That through the process of globalization, the U.S. Canada's a resource economy. The U.S. has become a service economy, and China has become the manufacturing economy of the world. And that's to turn back the clock on that is pretty tricky. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but just like, you know, even if there was the will to do it, you don't do it overnight.
No, it's not going to be a change that's going to happen anytime soon.
Correct. And the U.S. law has to stay the same for a decade for this
I agree.
to be viable. I mean, if you stand up a plant and you spent millions of dollars to do this, and a year later the law changes, well, you're pretty much out of business.
Right.
You have to make laws that actually, not talking politics, but whatever administration is in power, does not affect what you try to do. You know, pipeline on, pipeline off, pipeline on, pipeline off. I mean,
yeah,
who wants to work like
a long-term strategy that makes practical sense, I think, is what most people would want.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here, you guys can put your heads together on this one. Mo's asking, what would be the cost to create your own publishing capability? How long to recoup costs? You know, like, is it just completely out of the realm of possibility?
The first question there. It depends what you set up. See, if I set this up and I say, well, my concern is just me and maybe 1 or 2 of my buddies, then the cost is not that great, and I don't care. My production manager, Darren, he wants to print for other people, and I can tell you why. He's bored. You know, if I'm not actually doing something, he's just relaxing. You know, so then the problem comes in is how much runway do you have for everybody else? Okay, and then you start from that. You go from, well, I think Revolution Games will sell better than brand X, so you want to do Revolutionary Games because if he sells better, or you think his game is better, you're going to expect larger print runs. And I think you need to do this where you're saying, hey, I want to be able to print 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, which is, you know, anti-printing philosophy today. They want 10,000, 100,000. And so the numbers, I mean, look at the difference I just said, 1, 2, 5, 10, 50, 100,000. I mean, and there was a time when that worked. I mean, look, and what was the print run of Panzerleiter?
Yeah.
Something thousand pieces initially. I would love to get half that on a property.
Yeah. A low-selling Avalon Hill game would be a hit in today's market for sure. But I've heard that from lots of producers that the numbers that the American printers are wanting at this point, like they don't want to do anything less than 10,000 pieces. And if you're used to doing it, there's a lot of companies that their print run
that
is
we've talked about. Ludofact and Delano will do both do print runs of 2,000 at a minimum.
But the cost is so.
The cost, agree. I'm not disagreeing, but they will do it. I mean, if you're facing 300% tariffs, it may be worth it at that point.
Yeah, you really have to end up doing the math on almost a tariff raise per tariff raise daily basis to see when it becomes not profitable to ship it anymore.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you the one thing about the tariffs, what no one's really talking about. What it might do is if a lot of people stop doing things in China, it may bring the shipping rates down quite a bit because it won't be.
I did consider I'll get a better container rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll save my $1,000. Woohoo!
Right, but as you said earlier, the container rates is a small chunk of the total cost, right?
But to be fair, in COVID, they were not. They were substantial. Yes.
They were,
I'm saying
right. They
now
were
at the current market.
During COVID, we were still producing in the United States. And I remember talking to Tony Curtis of GMT, and he was going, most of the time I feel sorry for you. Right now, it's the reverse.
I did talk to Gene from GMT. He was playing his cards close to his chest. He just said he didn't want to talk about what their plans were because they're still in flux, and he's going there. They do the monthly newsletter thing. It comes out on the 17th, and he wanted to put it all in there. He didn't want to come on the roundtable and talk about half of what he was doing. But obviously, they get a lot of crap printed, right? So their fluctuation in from 100% to 145% is got to be, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
I mean, it's easy for Roger and I to come on and talk about it. We don't have hundreds of employees that may be affected. We don't have facilities that might be affected. So,
right? Yeah. Oh well, that's that will affect me. I don't know what. I don't know. You guys are all American. Maybe you can tell me. I've always heard that USPS, in terms of domestic rates, the domestic rates have to, if they want to increase domestic rates, they got to go through Congress for that. They can increase because the U.S. Postal Service is so old. It was created by Congress, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you want to, they can up their rates to ship internationally without going through Congress. But anything changes, any changes they want to make on their pricing domestically, they've got to get it rubber stamped by Congress, which is not always the easiest thing to do, right?
It's never the easiest thing to do. I don't think we can say it any other way.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The other problem is too, a lot of the postal services don't communicate. I know when you guys in Canada had your strike, it not only did it stop, but it stopped for months after the strike was over. The Canadian Post wouldn't take any packages, and then they say that's not the case now, though. I have not been able to verify one way or the other. But whenever we used to ship from USPS Post to Canadian Post, the tracking stops at the border.
Yeah,
the same thing. Same thing going the other direction. Yeah.
So what I found is they also use Global Post when they're doing it. USPS they partner with Global Post,
right?
And in rare circumstances, I've been able to call up Global Post, give them the tracking number, and they actually were able to tell me something.
Really, I have to remember that one.
Yeah.
I want to answer a question from Robert. He asked, "What's on my table behind me?" I really never should do this because this is my top secret.
Don't give up our state secrets.
This is the top secret, and Richard's fortunately, the second table is top secret is in Richard's room, and he's facing away from. So he's hiding you what is being worked on there, but I'm giving it away. But this is a rare irony, feeling bad about tariffs. I set up North Africa 41 from my friend Mark. And the other game that is right behind me that you can't see that isn't a secret is Tank Schlacht by Carrie Anderson, the next one in our World War I series that we're working on, and it'll be one of our next games once this gets a little clearer. But I'm glad I don't have anything that's actually secret running around right behind me.
I look, completely apart from tariffs. I totally look forward to Tank Schlacht because that's the next game after Death of an Army, right?
Yes.
And that was a fantastic game. So I'm glad that this is turning into a series rather than a one-off. Hey, look, there we got a little war game talking.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Dave, when you get your printing presses up and die cutting, let us know.
Oh, I will. I mean, it's something, like I said, the tariffs pretty much put us picking up the printers on hold. That's really because now I can't afford to do that. which is a laughable reason why I can't get a printer over here now if you think about it. The company in Denver I was talking about, they got their printer from Mexico, and literally what the guy did was he got the printer, disconnected everything, brought everything to the States, and had someone translate the Spanish and put stickers over it in English to get around it.
Do they have printers in Canada there, Grant?
I don't know about printers. We're really good on supplying the pulp for that you put into the press board and whatnot. We got a lot of trees. I was thinking about what you said, David, about if you do manage to set up some kind of a printing thing, whether or not you would take on printing for other companies. You've got to think that you'd become a very popular spot because, for one thing, that whole thing that we were talking about die cutting and all that, it's like people could rely on you that you'd know what the hell you were doing, and it wouldn't come as a shock that you needed.
That is probably the only real feature I could see that would be that. I kind of understand what the counters are and what's going on. But you've got a lot of other parts to it. What about dice? No one makes dice in this country. You got to still import the dice. Then you've got, there's a lot of other parts. I mean, the argument that Blackwell and I have had, or the debate, I would say, an argument was, is the problem printing in China, or is the problem getting it from China to us? And I stand on the point that I think it's the shipping. I mean, barring instances aside, and you can have a bad meal here, you can have a bad meal over there. So you can always get fate. But the real problem is, how do you get the games from China to the U.S. or other places? And like I said, the EU and UK, relatively inexpensive. The U.S. is very expensive. I actually considered, because I don't have a decent distributor in Australia, we shipped all the games for the Pan-Asian region from China. I mailed it all from China. And I was going to do it for the U.S. I was actually considering it until, I don't know what caused that problem, but the U.S. stopped taking all Chinese post and Taiwan post. Now, that's been lifted, but the games had already been, at that point, I decided already to ship the games to containers because it was taking so long. So, I really think part of the problem may not be the printing here, although I would like the control. I guess that's what it is. I would like the control of being able to print here, where now I've got to wait till someone calls me back. Granted, their English is better than my Chinese, but that's not saying much, So communications are what you ask. And I'll give you a really weird, freaky problem you have dealing overseas that you wouldn't have here. I printed canvas maps. I printed a lot of canvas maps. And I'm all about, I want to do the box, stick the label on it, ship it out the door, right? Sounds like a great idea. I put all the maps into tubes, nice and tight. Any shipping guy will tell you, you want no movement in the box because it causes damage. So everything is good, right? Put a label on the box, on the tube, because I knew what map it was, okay? Shipped them over here, and all of them got destroyed by the Postal Service. And here's why. They all got destroyed in the test runs because the label that wraps around the diameter of the tube was too small because I made it so tight to save it from moving that the scanners couldn't see it on the postal system, and they had to manually do it. So they got destroyed. So that insult into injury, we then put those boxes that go back to China and said, yeah, this is not going to work. They said, we're going to put it in a square box for you. So we put the tube in the square box, tape it all up, and we shipped it to you, right? Sounds like a great solution. Didn't put the labels on the outside of the box to tell me what map was what. And these are the crazy things. You just have to think about this. And to me, it's like, well, I would think, why would the label be useful in the tube, in the box? But in fairness, I didn't say anything about it because it just didn't cross my thought pattern. And these are all the things you get. I don't think you get if you print it in the US here that you get in China. So it's a catch-22. It's not a perfect, you move everything here, everything's going to be great. Leave everything there, it's going to be horrible or great. You've got to find, and I think the only real hang-up is the shipments.
Well, we have a little bit different thing in China. We did move to China for many years. And when we did, we followed a central philosophy that we have. Whatever we do for production, whether it be in the US or China, we always find somebody else who's already making war games. I don't get anything, I don't break in a new printer and try to explain to them. I did it once with Ludofact in desperation during COVID. But our Chinese printer prints a lot of war games. Their communication is unbelievable. I never have the slightest issue with them. Everything, they're better at looking at one of our games. They catch our errors. They're so experienced at games. They go, did you know that you didn't do this? And we go, crap. So unlike David, we've done like 6 games now. We may just be lucky so far, but those 6 games have been the most flawless games we've ever had from a production standpoint. We had no problems whatsoever from the Chinese end of it. Mm-hmm. However, our printer is also not the cheapest in China. We didn't also go down to there were other people who keep emailing me, offering me better rates. So we're paying a bit of a premium on that.
Yeah, I've had that too. And it's not just the price. I mean, the printer we use does print war games. I just wonder where the thought pattern is sometimes when you put the label on the tube, which I thought I was being a genius at. I didn't have to do anything. But when you put it in the box, but see, this is the whole thing too. The Chinese printer, how are they going to know that the U.S. Postal Service can't scan the freaking labels? They don't ship here. So it had to take me taking those pre-production copies, printing out shipping labels, and then shipping them to people to see what happened. So it's not, again, printing the game parts, I don't have any problems with. It's this other, I don't even know where you put that. How do I get it from my hands into your customer's hands?
Yeah, it sounds like your most recent experience was maybe about as bad as could happen.
Yeah, it was less than stellar, I'll tell you that. But I will say that one thing I will give any printer I've used in China, anytime I've had a problem, bad counter sheet, something that wasn't aligned, they always, Johnny on the spot, fix the problem or adjust the problem and ship me stuff for free on their dime to compensate that there was a mistake with something. So, it's a moving ball. It's just not as clean cut as you think,
Yeah, right. There's a lot of moving parts. Steve from Blue Panther, he's seen his counters cut by a machine that wasn't a die cutter or a laser. So I don't know a lot about printing, but I'm anxious to hear how the hell they cut those counters then.
Well, you can cut cardstock, and they do it to separate cardstock with the equivalent of a super high-speed little, I'd call it a table saw. I don't know what the heck they call it, but they can rip a very sharp, very thin blade and cut things that way. I've never heard it used with counters, but I have seen it done with bigger sheets and bigger sheet work. And so that potentially something like that is possible. I've
and
also
still
seen,
manage to leave them on sprues. Like,
I've seen Randy do it with a rotary cutter, and he's remarkably adept with a rotary cutter and cutting his counter sheets. So yeah,
He's a better man than me.
yeah,
Me too.
if you've seen the GMT game, A Time for Trumpets, with like 2,000 counters, I saw him at Consim World help Bruno out when Bruno hadn't finished all of his counters, and Randy is ripping by hand hundreds of counters, and he brought his counter making equipment with him to the convention. I was very impressed.
no, that's a pal. Yeah. Well, you know, if you got that kind of accuracy, Mo, good on you. Well, okay. So I mean, I don't think we haven't solved anything tonight, but I think we've laid out a lot about, you know, where all the problems and challenges are. I did want to not to just focus on the bad things. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where the tariff rates are going to go up or down. Like, you know, they're so flexible. We all sort of hope that this war or clash or whatever it is, you know, is over sooner than later, and we can get back to a settled playing field. But in the meantime, I'd like to talk to you guys about your companies and your product, because I think the one thing everybody can do right now if they want to help out their favorite producers is to buy some games, right? Like that's the best way to keep your favorite company afloat. So, let's start with you guys, Revolution, because you talked about you have this big decision about Gettysburg the first day, which is ready to get on the boat, but you don't know whether to put it on the boat. So people can't buy that. So what else are you flogging that people might not know about, or that I mean, I can talk about a lot of your games. I already have, but
I know, right? I think you do. I mean, obviously, you know that Berlin by Mike Ranella, we're working on that, the Solitaire Area Movement game. I have it right here on my desk that we're play testing.
But that's still yet to be printed and whatnot, right?
Oh yeah. So
yeah,
basically, we're not touching a printer. We're going to, at least right now, get all our designs fully developed, get all the artwork done. We'll line up 5 or 6 games and then make a decision.
Right. What about you? Go ahead, Roger.
So that we do have almost all of our old games. Since we keep our stuff generally in print, there's only 4 or 5 Revolution games that are out of print. Mm-hmm. So now is a perfect time. If you like the Blind Sword Civil War series, they're all available. All the previous ones. Mm-hmm. Knock yourselves out. And the same thing for almost everything we've printed since 2012. We've got.
Wait, Washington's Crossing, Roger. How many we have left?
Like about 30.
Okay, so there you go.
There you go. And but we do have fortunately for us, I think we've got, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 25,000 older games stored in the warehouse right now for sale. So it's not like we're short of product to sale now. And now over to the next company.
You guys are you're similar to Columbia in that way. They like to try and keep everything in stock as well. I'll say this about both of you. If anybody wants to learn how to play blind swords, they can look at my channel. If anybody wants to look at Locket Loads Point Blank, they can look at my channel, and I've got how to play for both of you guys. But David, where are you at? Have you got fresh stock in that's off the boat, or you know?
Yeah, we do. I want to say 2 things about Revolution. 2 of the games, if you guys don't have from Revolution Games, Furia Midway, and I think that one's called Furia Guadalcanal. Those are 2 of my favorite games by these guys. I still have them, and I really enjoy it. I actually play them still. And
yeah,
if you don't have them, I recommend them.
David and I played Pacific Fury, and he liked it so much. He goes, "Can we play right again?"
Yeah,
And we
did.
it was great fun. So that's just the great thing about publishing. Also, if you can't tell, most of us know each other, most of us like each other and work together. It's a great hobby.
Yeah, it is. It is. As far as us, we just got 5 games total in right now. We had the 3 crowdfunding games, which was World at War 85, Blood and Fury, which was a World War III game. We have there you go. We have the new Napoleonic game. Let me see, Glory and Empires, First Victories. And we also have a solitaire card game called JU87 Stuka Ace. Now, those games are not up for sale in the warehouse on the store yet because we're still shipping them to the crowdfunding people. And I wanted to make sure they all got it first before we opened it up. And the 2 new games that we haven't released at all, nor did I crowdfund because I kind of got nervous about, honestly, what was going on here with the tariffs. I just shipped them over. And that is Point Blank Winter Victory, which is the expansion to Point Blank. V is for Victory, and the other one is called Close Code Battles Waterloo, which is I guess more of a, I don't want to say tactical, but I guess it's kind of a tactical game on Waterloo Napoleonic combat at Hougoumont, and I'm saying that right, and I forget the other place there, but that's what we have. Every other game that we were working on, honestly, I canceled. I've said that multiple times, and we all working on. What I decided to do, like I said, is we used to work on a game, finish it, work on a game, finish it, work on a game, finish it. I'm going to do 3 or 4, no more than 6, no less than 4 is my goal. Print them all at once, ship them all at once, and then decide what the next set is going to be. Because we found that a lot of designers, they disappear. Guys who want to develop, they go to start develop, and they realize, hey, this is work, man. This is not just playing the game. So I've got a core base of guys that really keep doing what they're doing, and I'm really going to work on those games and go that route.
Well, I'm a big fan of VS for Victory, but this new Napoleonic game, that's what I really want to see from you guys. Like this is a whole new. This isn't part of a series. This is like a whole new thing, right? This.
Both of them can be series. I mean, I know Terry Dortley is the designer for Glory and Empire. We hope to do a lot more games with him on this series. I know the public seems, other than the delay, which upset him, but everyone who's got the game has been very happy with the quality of the game.
Right.
Right. And the Close Quarter Battles, technically it's only 1 game, but, Andrew Glenn did that one. He's a Canadian, great guy.
Well, good. When you find something new, you hope it turns into a series.
Yeah.
Here's one for you, Roger. I love the Gazala one. Not that I don't like Cell, but I love the Gazala one. But yeah, I think this is a question lots of people have been wanting. You probably get pestered with this all the time.
That would be yes. And so there is a potential one in the series. It's Eastern Front, first few days. Battle of Brody. It's working back and forth between me and the designer right now, but it's not that close yet. So I haven't made a decision whether it's going to make the finish line or not. He sent it to me. I made a bunch of suggestions. He sent it back to me. I made a bunch of suggestions a second time. So it's a maybe. We have about right now 12 to 15 games on our list of stuff that's being worked on right now. And like David mentioned, the output when they get to you is really erratic. So we have a little different strategy. We don't really sweat which one gets done in what order. So if a guy takes 4 years to turn in the game, but it's a good game, it's good. When it gets to us, we start the process of development and everything else. So if you ask me what's going to get printed this year, I could give you pretty confidence only on a couple of games. And then everything else is sort of in a cloud behind it, which will show up when it shows up.
Well, that's sounds totally reasonable. This is good to hear. A positive thought going forward for more American printing. And nice to see Brian Train here tonight. Hello, Brian, another fellow Canadian. I think that is kind of true. I mean, Blue Panther really does take care of so many producers that wouldn't otherwise be able to publish. Right? It's like there's and even some I know, like Catastrophe from England has also published through Blue Panther. Like it's not just for America. Blue Panther's taking care of some worldwide customers as well.
Yeah, no, they do stuff for us, and I've got nothing but praise for the production quality. I know the last couple of games released was Wake Island. Did an excellent job on that for us. I can't think of the other two. I think it's 4 games he did total. He's got 2 more he's working on. I won't say what they are, so I don't yell that. But he does great stuff.
I love Blue Panther's laser cut counters, and for some reason they don't have that smudgy stuff that the Victory Point games used to have.
Yeah, I mean, we tried that for a while too with the laser cut in. There was just no easy way to get around that when I tried it, and I gave the laser cut away and gave up after a while.
I think laser cutting is great if the the number of counters is low. I don't think it makes as much sense for a game that's like got 200 counters or something. It's just, I think it's just too much or something. I think this is exactly true, Brian. I've heard from so many smaller producers that are banging their heads against the wall because they just can't make the minimum numbers, or as you guys pointed out, there's a couple of companies that will do a print run of 2,000, but then the per unit cost goes up to like $40-50 a game or something that makes the game completely unsellable once you get it to retail.
Well, there's 2 things too I want to add to that. If we can get and do a high print house, whether it's me or anybody else, that will make the amount of printing you do not as big of a deal, because again, it's the same button push. You may have to reload the paper or reload toner or whatever you want to call it onto the system, but you don't have to. I mean, when you use traditional printing press, you're literally pouring ink into it. You literally have a lot more to do to set it up with the plates and everything else. But with a high-tech printer, you don't have that anymore.
Yeah, to stress, really stress what David's saying. People ask, why is there that big difference on a traditional press? And I've watched our maps printed before. And a good pressman will sit there, he'll load it up, and he'll take this huge multi-million-dollar machine and he'll push the button and print one. And he'll go over and check the color by eye. He'll fiddle with his dials. He'll push the button again, and by eye correct the color. And you laugh at that, but actually a good print guy is incredibly accurate by eye. You cannot believe it. But so you've got this machine that has this huge fixed cost, and this guy is sitting printing one. A good press guy can sometimes run 30 sheets before he decides, now hit the run 5,000. So what you're paying for the time and the expertise of the setup is what they always tell you in printing. After it's just running and it's paper and ink, the cost is not that bad. But it doesn't cost any different to set up 1,000 maps as it does to set up 10,000 maps.
And the other thing too that I think stops war games now compared to, let's say, the early days is we don't have the retail outlets that we grew up with when we were going in to buy games. I mean, we could go to bookstores, and you can go into hobby stores, and you go into game stores. I remember cutting school, going into Manhattan downtown to a malt shop, and inside the malt shop there was war games for sale. A game stand. And you don't have the ability anymore. And you also have, partially due to the crowdfunding, Now this probably is about 7-8 years ago, so the numbers may be a little old. The average yearly before crowdfunding, the amount of games produced was less than 500 games per year worldwide, brand new games. Now, 10 years ago, give or take, it was over 5,800 games a year because of the crowdfunding. So where does all these games go? Okay, and as much as Revolution and myself love our games, we're not the new sellers of Catan. I'm not trying to pick on them, but we're not somebody where you can find it in a Target or find it in a B. Dalton or anything else. So our ability to sell these games is so much less than what it used to be. And it's not just us; it's anybody who's in this field. And the game stores are just not there too.
Yeah, definitely. I bought my first real war games from a department store, Woodward's. Here, it's like it's like Kresge's or that sort of thing. And they had a section that was like the men's section where they had like things you'd buy for your dad for Father's Day or something. And here were these war games. Like, yeah, you'll never see that anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that also is what I think keeps the print runs low, is because the availability to sell them to change and stuff like that just isn't there. The shelf space doesn't pay.
Yeah, I think we've talked about a few companies tonight that do make games in the U.S., but yeah, like he says, sometimes the component quality is fairly modest, and no fancy die cutters is kind of a deal breaker for lots of publishers, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But I didn't highlight the comment, but Brian also is a big fan of the print and play games, and publishing the rules, and you print them out and do your arts and crafts project and make your own damn game, and don't pay for all these fancy components.
Yeah.
I have made
like
too many games.
Yeah, I look at wargaming now the way people play golf, and I've said this a few times, where you got the occasional guy who goes to Walmart, gets his golf clubs for $50, whatever they may cost, and is playing with blue jeans and cowboy boots out on the golf course. And then you've got guys who they've got $10,000 clubs, they got their weird looking shorts, they got the cleats, and they're playing the same game. And I think a lot of the gamers now that are left, and even the new ones that are coming in, they want the dice to be perfect. They want balanced dice. They want the thickest, best box. They want the nicest counters, and they want the quality of the production. It's their hobby. And when we bought games, we were buying them to play. We didn't look at it as a hobby. I mean, that kind of came later. And a lot of people left the hobby and then came back as they got older. So I think that also, that's our philosophy as far as we want to. I don't care if the game's expensive. I care that the game is high quality type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Back in the day, we did not worry so much about component quality the way some people fetishize it these days. And I'm still I'll take a function over form 10 days out of 10 for sure. Give me a map that I can figure out what's going on over a pretty map anytime. Yes, Catastrophe Games is in Michigan. That mea culpa. That was my mistake. Those guys are great, and they have that great game, Arabian Struggle, that I think Blue Panther is printing. So yeah, that was my mistake. They're not from England. They are American. But great guys. Check out Arabian Struggle if you haven't. Fantastic game. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm not surprised. Brian's got a ton of games that are print and play. So go to his website and or to a War Game Vault, and if you don't want to pay high prices for these new tariffed games, there are alternatives for sure. This has been a great discussion. I think you guys have really laid out the challenges from your different perspectives and your different business models. Before we wrap up, is there any last things anybody wants to say? or last questions they want to answer that maybe I missed along the way?
I will give one idea I think would help us all as small publishers. If we had like a mall-like store where all of us could have our own link into. So if you're into war games or strategy games, you go to one store, not to necessarily purchase it, but where you can find one spot to find everything. It's kind of like a mall. I think we lost that. And so if you don't know Revolution games, you don't know Lock and Load, how do you find us? How do you know they exist? Type of thing.
Yeah, good point. Well, I want to thank you all, David, Richard, Roger. It's been great talking to you. I hope that this has put, answered a few questions, or at least let a few people blow off some steam. All I can say to wrap up is I hope for some stability going forward, and if we can just get past the uncertainty, at least you'll be able to make a plan, right?
Yep.
Yeah. A good idea. I never see plan anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not sure we have good ideas, so you can lend some if you want.
All right. Well,
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for being my guest.
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.
Sure.